Now, at the same time, China has warned it will retaliate if there's any foreign interference over the planned security law. US President Donald Trump says there will be a very interesting response in coming days. Those were his words. Mr. Trump did not give any details, but a White House spokesperson suggested Hong Kong's status as a global financial hub could be at stake.
We're doing something now. I think you'll find it very interesting, but I won't be talking about it today. I'll be talking about it over the next couple of days, John. Okay?
Under a bill passed by US lawmakers last year, Hong Kong must be certified to have a high degree of autonomy every year, or else it could lose trading privileges. And for more on this, Simon Marks joins us from Washington, D.C. Simon, President Trump has been tight-lipped about what he plans to do, but have there been any hints so far?
Well, there are hints, I think, out there, Steve, and there's a range of options. I mean, clearly everyone is focusing on this issue of the certification of Hong Kong, this notion that the United States has to certify that Hong Kong is sufficiently autonomous to justify its continuing exemption from the US tariffs that apply to the mainland. And clearly, were the United States to conclude that Hong Kong's autonomy had been pierced to such an extent that that certification could no longer be offered, then the taxes and tariffs that are in place against the mainland would apply to Hong Kong. And as senior figures within the Trump administration have argued, that would pose enormous problems for Hong Kong's continued presence on the world stage as a global financial hub. So there's no question they're looking at that. We know there is discussion up on Capitol Hill about passing new law in the legislature here that would target specific Chinese entities and officials for sanctions if they impose the national security law that has been proposed. And there is another issue out there, and that is the possibility of sanctions that target specifically the aviation sector. There is a smouldering argument between Washington and Beijing over the access that US airlines have to slots at Chinese airports and the access that Chinese airlines have to US airports and slots here. And it's perfectly possible that we may see the US Department of Transportation taking some action in that regard to penalize Chinese airlines. That conversation's been underway over the last few days. It may now be advanced as a result of the situation in Hong Kong that the United States believes is worsening.
So, Simon, are there fears that we could see a further escalation of the US-China trade war as a result of this, then?
Look, I think there's certainly no one here in Washington that thinks that this is particularly good for the possible resumption of trade talks and a resolution of trade disputes and problems in the bilateral relationship. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, as you know, just a few days ago, suggested that all of this was completely recasting the US-China relationship in a historical way, saying that the United States no longer believes that it can welcome China to a seat around the international table, because he argues that the Chinese government is absolutely set to derail any moves towards democracy, whether those are in Hong Kong or on the mainland or anywhere else for that matter. So that suggests that all bets are off with regard to future conversations, unless and until political leaders on both sides, in Washington and in Beijing, take a concrete step to cool the rhetoric, reset things yet again, and try to bring about a return to the mature kind of dialogue that was underway when that first raft of the trade agreement was negotiated just a few months ago. But it feels like we are a very long way away from that possibility at the moment.
All right, thanks for that. Simon Marks speaking to us from Washington, D.C.